the bottom line is this. I'm 79, so at this stage of the game, if I can't do what I do properly, then I won't do it at all.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Film at Lincoln Center's retrospective of the films of Mike Leigh has brought the great director back to New York City and back on this program. His first time on the podcast was episode 54, which I recommend listening to if you haven't yet. I was so happy to sit down with him again for another special episode and have the opportunity to dig a little deeper into his process. Enjoy.
Since we last talked, we've had the great fortune of being able to listen to a bunch of your fine actors on this program. Since we spoke, we've had Leslie Manville on. I just had Eddie Marsan on. Andrew Riseborough was talking about that wonderful little part she had and how working with you still feeds her. I've also had on a couple actors who, unprompted, have started talking about you and their wonderful experience of not getting selected by you after having an audition.
Well, why is that wonderful?
They speak about it like it is one of their great...
Who are they?
Okay, would you like some names? Emily Beecham, Dominic West, Chope Derasu. It made me start to think about something I don't really know about your process and haven't asked you yet, which is the audition process. Like most directors, they have an idea of a character in their mind, whether it's fully formed or whatever they have, they're trying to fill it. You don't have that, you know? So I want to know just what you're really doing in that audition process with these people, if you can talk about that. What separates one actor from another? Because these are amazing actors that weren't selected, but what is it that you're looking for?
First of all, you could say there are actors and actors. I work with character actors, which is to say, at the most basic level, people that don't just play themselves, in fact, don't play themselves, who are versatile, who are not only good at and able to, but committed to depicting real people out there in the street. In other words, where acting is not a function of the actor's ego, but is a creative job, an artistic job of depicting the real world, drawing from real sources, making characters based on real people they know or have met. So that's what I'm looking for. There are actors who think they're character actors, but aren't. There are actors who are not interested in character acting at all. There are actors who have got no sense of humour, and it's essential that I work with people with a sense of humour. Anyone I work with, we're going to embark on a long and complicated and in some ways profound shared process. So I need to be not only is he an actor, someone I can get on with, but someone who will be good in an ensemble. And not all actors are. So I was in New York in 1980 or something, and I stayed with some friends in the Lower East Side. And she at that time was a casting director. She said, well, there's an equity specified minimum length of time for an audition. I said, well, what's that? She said, 40 seconds.
Wow.
That's one thing. If I'm auditioning someone, it happens in two parts. First of all, I don't audition, I just meet people.
Right.
For at least 20 minutes, usually half an hour. There are, of course, the conventions of audition, where an actor goes into a room and there's a casting director and an assistant casting director and two other casting directors and a director and an assistant director and a producer and somebody from Hollywood and a whole gang of people, and the actor, they talk to the actor and they tell them about the movie, they tell them about the script, they tell them that they're hoping to get Nicole Kidman, they tell him about the budget, but they don't actually ask the actor anything about the actor. That's a caricature, but it happens. I just meet an actor, nobody else in the room, never, when we chew the fat. Mostly, I have no idea what exactly the project I'm going to do is, and I'm looking for people, for somebody with whom I will collaborate to create a character. I say mostly because the exception have been my 3 historical films, Topsy-Turvy, Mr. Turner and Peter Lou. But even then, the principle was the same. I mean, even though I knew there were certain characters we were going to cast, certain kinds of characters, in the end, the same thing happens at the audition. I just meet, get to know the actor. I can't waste time. I don't waste time talking about the project, other than the historical ones, just say a bit about it. But, it's the worst thing in the world for an actor to be told at great length about a project that he or she knows that she's quite likely never going to be in. So we chat, and the job is to get the hang of whether I think it's somebody that might be able to do it or is interesting and can get on with it. So I then, if it seems worth it, I recall the act later on. We then work in a space, just the actor. What I don't do, and haven't done for a million years, in the very early days, I tried it and it was a waste of time, was get people together in groups improvising, because it's dubious even in a working situation until you reach a stage where there's an organic stuff on the go. But in an audition situation, it's ridiculous, because people either have upstage everybody else, or they've got taste and they shut up and don't do anything. So the actor comes. I always insist that the actor does not prepare anything, does not come with any preconceptions, and doesn't even bother trying to find out from previous victims what is going to happen. It's very straightforward. I say to the actor, okay, think of someone you know, a real person. I have to give them some kind of a guidance. So I nearly always say somebody who you would see as tending more towards the introspective than the extrovert. But it's just really a way of putting it, selecting it. Then I say to the actor, I'm going to leave you alone for a bit, have a think, and tell me when you thought of someone. So then the actor thinks of someone, and then I say to the actor, okay, tell me about the guy or the woman. And they chat about it. All the time I'm seeing whether it seems like, the way, there are some actors who start talking about someone they know and they just keep talking about themselves, right? But when you can tell when somebody is really on the case with this person, then I will say, okay. I'd also ask about how the person is, apart from the nature of their life and whatever they do and the social situation and so on. Then I'll say, okay, I want you to do them, buy them to him or her, by himself, by herself. Literally by herself, nobody else there. At home, in a normal situation. Don't try and make anything happen, just be natural. And I always have a whole pile of stuff, props, papers, newspapers, magazines, pens, paper, cigarettes, whatever. Cups, saucers, plates, water, wine glasses, all stuff. And it's that, use stuff if you want. I know it's always furniture and stuff. And I'm going to leave you alone for literally go out of the room. Don't wait for me to come back. Go into character as soon as you want and sustain it. But don't try and make it interesting. Don't try and do a scene. Don't try and make anything happen. Just be the person. Now, apart from anything else, that's what we do when we start working on characters when we're actually doing the projects. I'll come back into the room and and also the other thing I say, very important this, and this is again a thing that goes right through the whole process of making the rehearsing and all that. Don't come out of character till I tell you to come out of character. In other words, don't suddenly take the option of saying, well, I'm going to stop now, because this doesn't, apart from when we're actually doing it, you can't do that because other people are, So I then go out of the room literally for a while, maybe 10 minutes or whatever. Go back and sit quietly in the corner. To tell you the truth, pretty much when I go back into the room, I can tell whether it's happening or not.
Why?
I mean, sometimes you go back in and the actor goes, "Oh, right," and start, and you think, "Missed the point." But, they're off the thing completely. Sometimes older actors, but you can tell.
What are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing the character. If it's working, you can see that they're doing the person they talked about.
But they can't be doing too much.
No, they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
They might be doing, by ordinary theatrical standards, you might say that they're doing fuck all, basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. But you can tell whether that's bullshit, or whether they're actually doing the character.
Yeah.
Then I say, okay, stop, talk about it. How was it? And then there's just more to it. I mean, sometimes just sitting there is hard. And so then I say, okay, go back into character and just walk around continuously so that you can get him or her on the go. Those sorts of things happen. I mean, there are other things, but basically that's it. And on the basis of what I've just described and no more, I can make a decision. And I have to say that with the occasional exception, I mean, there have been occasions when it didn't work out, but very, very, I mean, you could count literally on the fingers of one hand the number of times it's come to an impasse with an actor. And it's always because there's something else blocking, some other thing is blocking the actor's freedom. See, people say, well, how do you know what you're going to do? And it's complex. I mean, I can have a very clear idea of the basic dynamics or purposes. I mean, I knew in embarking on Secrets and Lies that this was going to be a film about adoption, because people close to me in my family, lots of people had adopted kids. And that was there, apart from other elements which are also there. I knew, because I'm old enough to have been around before the Abortion Act of the 1960s, to remember what it was like in the days of what it'll be like here soon, Blackstreet abortionists. So I knew that's what that film was going to be about. But that didn't mean that the whole thing was laid out. So you arrange the certain premises. But there are also all sorts of characters. And I mean, when I cast Eddie Marsan, I mean, happy-go-lucky. I mean, I knew that in some way, the plan was to tap into Sally Hawkins' energy, positivity. Though Poppy is not Sally Hawkins by any shape,
right,
a stretch of the imagination. But I really didn't know what we were going to do with Eddie until we started working and developing stuff. And of course, Eddie will probably tell you, and he probably has, that of course, he knew he was a character and there were other characters, and he was doing this manic fascist driving instructor. He assumed that the film was going to be about him with lots of different victims. But of course it wasn't. But the point is, any number of novelists, dramatists, poets, sculptors, composers will tell you that the work dictates where they go next. You interact with the material and you discover what the piece is on the journey of making it. That's what I do. We do.
So, but I imagine there's a certain moment where you have to begin to kind of start thinking about things dramaturgically.
No.
Or is it all organic?
No. I'm thinking about things dramatically, as you put it, dramaturgically, all the time. Because that's the job. That's the job. I mean, it's not. It's interesting. I think you just said, you implied that dramaturgically and organically it will be in some way opposite.
That's right, I did.
But that's rubbish.
That's good.
Because,
good point.
It's organic, but that doesn't mean it's anarchic, chaotic, unguided.
Good point.
No, it's organic. It's organic, and it's important that it is organic in the sense that I don't ever say, well, I don't care whether you think he will do this or not, just do it. I never do that. It's got to work organically. But as to my function as a dramatist or as a filmmaker, that's on the go. We've talked already in this conversation about, possible dynamics and, all or nothing. I knew that Timothy Spall was going to be in it and Leslie Manville, and so I pretty well decided that they would be a couple. During the auditions, you've seen that film?
Yes.
During the auditions, James Corden, before he ruled the world, and he was just an unknown actor, came into the audition. Tubby fellow. Alison Garland, very good actress, came to the audition. Tubby girl. You'd have to have been stupid not to spot that they could be brother and sister. I hadn't thought about that, but when that gave me the idea. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Then we worked on,
Right.
I mean, there are always actors in my films who I pull in, and I have no idea what they're going to, as with Eddie, but there are lots of characters where you just don't know where, because they are versatile character actors. And you look at Leslie Manville's 10 performances, not all of them been in, a couple have been on the stage, but I've worked with her 10 times. And if you look at those performances that you've seen, they are all diametrically different from each other.
Yes.
Because, my partner, Marion Bailey, who plays Mrs. Booth in Mr. Turner and the Prince Regent's mistress at the end of Peterloo, and the auntie in Meantime. I mean, these are versatile actors. But to go back to your thing about what I'm up to, I'm constantly thinking dramatically and about cinematically. I have to. I'm not sitting there thinking, something will happen.
But this is even before they're together, even before you put people together?
Yes. I'm thinking about potentials or possibilities, as artists do. But then, you get messages back from what happens.
Yeah.
On detailed level, and you suddenly no, that's where we go. And you do what painters and sculptors, and as I say, you interact with the material.
Yeah.
You learn from it. It tells you, and you tell it, and you guide it, and and then you sleep on it, and you take a weekend off, and you come back, and and all of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are things that get lost, or that don't quite follow through on, so on and so forth. And there's another important aspect of the whole thing, which is very much to do with, very important from the point of view of, which I think you are, broadly speaking, looking at these things from. We are not talking about a closed, hermetically sealed, up its own arse environment where people are just sort of creating something in a room. We're talking about depicting the real world. Therefore, research, very few actors, very few, if any, have ever worked on any of my projects without being involved in field research. And, apart from anything else, character A is married to character B. Character C and character D are their children. Well, they're not going to be able to do anything until we spent weeks creating the world into which they were born. Character A is and character B are brothers, or brother and sister, or sisters. But the main characters are going to be characters B and C, who is married to character. But character C can't do anything for a long time till we've established the world, etc. So that's a broad, crude illustration. Research, people, if they're not involved with this, they off researching everything that will help. Not everything that's going to be in there tangibly, but it makes it, it breathes air into it. It makes it three-dimensional. Actors, for example, playing families will have gone off together and decided, literally physically gone to where that house is where, that's where they went to school. Actually go visit the school. You name it, apart from watching the movies they will have watched, listening to the music they will have listened to, reading the books they will have read, the magazines, they've been to places they would have researched where they would go on holiday, you know, eating the food they would eat, all of that. Then your question would be, what happens? First of all, as you all know, I work naturally and obviously and of necessity, individually for a stretch of time. And I ask them to make lists, long lists of people they know. Generally speaking, I don't even specify. The only specification always is same gender, same sex. Apart from that, people talk about all sorts of people. And I spend, you know, session after session just listening to them talking about. David Thewlis held the record on Naked. I think it was 110 people on his list. But Sally Hawkins, it was 215 or 200 and something in the teens. Wow. Now, sometimes an actor will say, I hardly remember this person, but I just remember that I don't remember what they were called. And sometimes they talk at great length about people they know. The only thing people that are off the list are siblings, parents, for obvious reasons. So we do these sessions, and gradually I whittle it down, and I have to decide who to. And again, that's the dramatic decisions on the go. And finally, we whittle it down to usually about 3 people, and then we merge them together. And you know.
Wait, let me jump in here because that exact moment that you're saying that you're even thinking dramatically then, but so that means that you have a little bit of where you want something to go, or is it that in general this character seems like it would fit into a drama more than this character in general? Well,
I mean, if you translate that into, I think this person is more interesting than that person. But yeah, yes, I mean, but also bear in mind that, you know, if I know we're working in a particular working class milieu or a middle class milieu, I mean, those things are important too, you know. I mean, like, you know, it's more obvious than your question would probably imply. I mean, but on the other hand, I mean, you know, all artistic processes, by definition, if they're going to be any use, employ lateral thinking. You know, or also leaps. You make a decision without rationally knowing why you're making the decision or where it will. And your question, you know, I don't know where, you don't necessarily know where it'll lead. On the other hand, I have a clear image of a possibility, and I work to that, and it materializes. All these things are on the go in different ways.
Well, this brings up, I just watched Secrets and Lies again. I was getting to the point of the barbecue and thinking, I forget what the moment is that pushes the revelation. And I was thinking, unless a Brenda's character comes in knowing all along that she's going to reveal this, and I don't remember her thinking that. So I was thinking, okay, something has to happen here. I forgot what it was. And then it came. It was the money in the card, right? That changes a whole temperature in things, right? I mean, you're making, I wanted the listeners to know, you made what would you call that face? You turned your head thinking I might be wrong about this.
well, it's not.
But I find this, let me finish because
sure.
Then go back to that. That has to be the moment because it changes everything. You can see the inner workings going in Brenda's character there. where she starts to get upset, and then she reveals. She says, "That's my daughter," and they wouldn't have happened without that money.
Good point. I mean,
so, but tell me about where that happened. I would think that is a dramaturgical touch that you've realized had to happen, and you gently introduce that with everyone, right?
No, not with everyone, and it wouldn't have been with everyone because that's not what.
Right.
No, I mean, the point is this. You're right that the money changes the temperature. That's not what she doesn't know. She's going to. He says when Hortense goes to the loo, to the bathroom. Morris says she's a nice girl.
Yeah.
And that makes her say, well, she's. Look, she would be. She's. How do you know her? And she said, do you know her mother? When he said, you're looking at her. She's my daughter. Just to contextualize the answer, technically, we had shot 4/5 of the movie without knowing how it would resolve. We then stood down the crew for about 10 days, which is what we do sometimes. And in the house, the actual house, we set up another one of these long improvisations. And they all showed up and had a barbecue and completely uninterrupted, long improv. With all sorts of stuff going on. But within it, that's what happened. I mean, well, I'll just carry on and then I'll in a way answer the question. You'll see that I will have answered the question. In the improvisation, at the point when Hortense has gone to the bathroom and she says, you're looking at her, and she says, she's my daughter, and the shit hits the fan. The other daughter, Claire Rushbrook, the actress in character, got up, was very aggressive, as she is in the film, grabbed the boyfriend, said, right, we're going, in the improvisation, and they left.
Right.
And they left. And not only that, they absolutely left. And the improvisation went on for quite a long time. And when I stopped the improvisation, eventually, we didn't know where they were. It took some time to find them. They were off somewhere. Now that was, all the stuff that had gone on was good, but it was certainly not dramatically useful.
Ideal,
because the end, we hadn't yet, it was revealed that Hortense was Cynthia's daughter, but we need to have a resolution, so I had to...
Right.
So I said to Claire Rushbrook, okay, is there any way she'd go back? She said, no way, there's no way she'd go back. She wouldn't.
And this is the god of the story, you having to negotiate with one of these characters, right? This is what's interesting.
But that is only what dramatists do. Except they don't do it with the actors,
Right.
And the rule is strict. I mean, if she'd said, well, she wouldn't, but I will if you want, that would have been totally sackable offence.
Yes.
Right, so
yes.
I said, okay, fine. Sure, yeah, fine. How would she get, actually in reality, she will. She'd get the bus. The bus stop, it so happened, was literally across the road from the house. So we set up improvisation, and she's at the bus stop with the boyfriend, and Morris, small character, comes across. She said, there's no way. We stopped. So we carried on exploring it through improvisation. And eventually we hit on the thing that if the boyfriend says...
So it's brilliant.
Actually, I think you should... And again, came out organically. Then she'd go, well, maybe she would. So then we were able to go back, set up a whole other improvisation and explore. And of course... with lots of different improvisations that explore, and so then we're into constructing precisely through rehearsal, through using the improvisation.
Yes.
So it's a question of exploration, if you want to call it negotiation.
Discovery.
But always always it's got to be truthful.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it falls apart at the seams.
Oh, otherwise it's just less. I mean, what is it? It's almost like in other movies, I'm forgiving. Like if I like it, there's a forgiveness I'm constantly forgiving. Like, there's no forgiveness in Mike Leigh movies. Like, you don't have to forgive. That's the thing. Like, you just experience. If you really think about how often you forgive when you're watching other movies, it'd be amazing to think about.
You're right.
And that's why all your work pays off. So Film at Lincoln Center is having this retrospective, which is amazing. And, you know, there's going to be somebody in every screening, probably more than one person, that has never seen a Mike Leigh movie. And, you know, they're going to be seeing it for the first time. I envy those people. You know, I have envy. But what would you, if you could objectively say, like, what would be the first film that you think someone who has never seen
Question
one of
with
your...
no answer.
Oh, come on.
Come on.
Objective. I want you could be objective because you can be objective. I know you can.
That's not a question of being objective or not being objective. You're asking me which film.
You could say the first one, and that's an answer.
Yeah, but that's your answer, not mine.
Why don't you want to answer that?
It's not a question of that I don't want to answer it.
Oh.
I said it's a question with no answer. There is no answer. If there was, I'd
There's
say.
no perfect answer.
No, I mean, this is bullshit. There's no answer because there isn't an answer, you know.
You can answer it for John Cassavetes, though. What would be the movie that you would introduce people to with John Cassavetes?
Well, that's a complicated question because some of his films work better than others.
Exactly.
For me, his best film is The Killing of a Chinese Bookie.
Okay. It's one of my favorites.
But on the other hand, it would be true to say that the first film of his that I saw, and indeed the first film that anybody saw, was Shadows, which came out at exactly the point in time this time of the year in autumn of 1960, when I hit London and started to discover world cinema, which I hadn't seen before in Manchester.
Wow.
And I was studying at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, where improvisation was completely non-existent. And so you knew here was this movie that had somehow been improvised and all the rest of it. Looking at it now, I mean, it is not a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a sort of ragbag collection of stuff.
Yeah.
So apart from anything else, I mean, one's perception of things moves and shifts.
Yeah. Yeah. The last time we spoke, I was pushing you because I had ignorance about this. I was saying that you can probably just go to Netflix and say, I'm Mike Leigh, give me some money, and they would give you money. It has since come, and you pushed back and said no, and I didn't believe you. It has since come out that you're having a hard time raising money for a new movie. Now, as a filmmaker, I'm like, if Mike Leigh can't get money, how can I sit at my computer right now and write my thing? So I pushed back. I apologized because I didn't believe you. I believe you now. So now let's go to the next step. What the hell has to happen for this to happen? Like, I don't get this. And I heard an interview with you where someone was pushing back and saying, do you think you have to change your approach? You know, people want a script or people want a certain actor. And you said, no. I mean, is something on the table of like creating a fake script?
No.
I mean,
no, forget all that. No, that's bullshit. No. I mean, it'll probably happen, and there are people talking about doing something. Yeah. But Netflix don't want to know, and Amazon similarly, and even the BBC lately turned down a proposed project. But there's no question of cheating or fake scripts, because that's not what it's about.
Right.
I mean, the bottom line is this. I'm 79, so at this stage of the game, if I can't do what I do properly, then I won't do it at all,
Other filmmakers who are between films can sit down and write. Your process you don't have the materials that you use to make things at your access all the time. Like someone could spend 7 years writing a script and perfecting it,
That's right.
So what do you do during this time to kind of keep your...
Well, I do all the other things. In the pandemic, I've read a lot. I procrastinate. I enjoy life. I, play with my grandson. Whatever. I look at movies. I look at art, and I do all those cultural things. I spend time in the countryside and walk in the woods in Cornwall. I live in the middle of central London. I potter around. I cook. I do everything except the one thing I don't do is write a movie or a play, because I can't do that unless I'm working with actors and cinematographers and everybody else and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's straightforward as that. And it'll either happen before too long or it won't.
On an occasion like this, where you're in town for a retrospective, do you take the opportunity to look at your oeuvre and kind of, make some kind of assessments of work?
Well, here's the thing. This is a retrospective, but I'm only here for a few days. So I'm going to actually do Q&As for 3 films. Naked, Secrets and Lies, and Topsy-Turvy. And then I'm going. But there was a retrospective at the BFI, the British Film Institute, National Film Theatre in London, in October and November, in which they showed all of my movies, including my television movies. And I spent a lot of time hanging out at that and watching things and doing Q&As for every film, nearly, and with actors and others involved, And that gave me the opportunity to do what I think you're asking me to do. You don't sort of, in a way, you don't sort of reevaluate your oeuvre or anything of that sort. But it's simply very stimulating and refreshing to experience audiences. First of all, audiences showing up. They play to packed houses at the National Film Theatre. The best thing about it, apart from anything else, was that there was a very large proportion of young people in the audience. There were very good Q&As. There was good crack, lots of people stayed and have drinks and all that, and it was fun. Yeah. And it was very stimulating, but you do, I suppose, what you're asking me is, you do suddenly, you suddenly think, well, I haven't been wasting my time, But, and so I feel the same way about it here. I won't be experiencing it we're actually going to watch Topsy-Turvy. But it's great and a great honour and all of that. But so many films, so many thousands of films get made and then get lost. Yeah. So they're all out there on Blu-ray or DVD, and they're being shown, and it's great.
It's great. It's very exciting for us fans. Mike Leigh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.